Everybody doing? Yeah. Excellent. My name is Mero and today I'm going to talk about the power of empathy as I was introduced. In 1988, I arrived to Melbourne with my family and I experienced something, in preparing for my talk tonight and where am I going to start and what I'm going to share with you. I wanted to share a story that truly impacted me. See, over the years with the work that I've done and with the people that I was blessed to be able to be of service of through my work and through my education, what I've done, a lot of people ask me, what is the thing, what is that main thing that gets you, so successful in the work you do? And I've really been giving it a lot of thought. And I've come to the conclusion that it is the power of empathy. It's the power to be empathetic. Now, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy that we should both know the definition of. Sympathy is to feel sorry for somebody. And I guess as humans, sometimes we want that, sometimes we crave that, sometimes it's what we seek. But I think what's more powerful is to be empathetic and actually to feel for somebody else. So I'm going to share a story with you today that I believe set my whole life apart, set my whole life for this man that stands before you tonight. And it's truly come back to that power of empathy. See, when I arrived to Melbourne, and I'm very blessed to have my family with me at the back tonight. When I arrived to Melbourne in '88, I was a lot younger and a lot smaller. I was 8 years old. And I went to a school, a private school, by the name of St. Joseph's in Glenferrie Road, if anyone's familiar. And I remember day one, I had this teacher. And what's really funny is that I don't remember this teacher's name. But this teacher didn't like me very much, or so I felt to this 8-year-old child. I was literally picked out from the class to read. And this was one of the worst things the worst thing you could do to me. I've just arrived to Australia, couldn't speak, couldn't read the language, and this woman just asked me to come and read, and she would very forcefully push me in front of the class to read. I remember one time I broke down in tears, and it was so embarrassing as this 8-year-old child. So what they did was, and I remember this, and Mum's at the back, and I'm sure she's hearing it, they invited my mother and my father and myself and this teacher with an interpreter. And I remember as an 8-year-old child, I was sitting in this room, and this interpreter was interpreting so I could understand exactly what they're saying. And I was basically told, or I received the information that my academic levels are not to standard and I either need to be looked at to be put into a special school or perhaps to be kept back a year or two. Now, this is where the empathy comes in. There is a teacher, he is a current Year 8 coordinator at Salesian College, if anybody's aware, and I've spoken about this gentleman all over the world every time I've had the opportunity to speak, because this is truly what built me up to be the person that I am today. So this teacher by the name of Mr. Steve Beckham was, and I remember this as clear as daylight. He was walking one day in the schoolyard, and he found this really angry and upset Egyptian boy who's just come, and I'm pretty sure word would have got around throughout the school. But what this man did was spectacular, and I believe again that it set me apart for the rest of my life. He found a way to connect with me. He found a way to speak with me. And what he did is he approached me and he said, "What's the problem? What is it that you're going through?" I remember he was on yard duty that day. And he said to me, "What is it that you're going through?" And I remember I said to him, "I can't read. I don't know how to read." So he goes, "What do you mean you can't read? I'm sure you can read something." So he pulled out a book and he said, "Read." And anything over 3 letters was actually quite challenging for me. So what he did is he took these big words, and I remember with a pencil, he clearly just split them up, and he divided up the big words into small words. Now to me, that's empathy at its finest, isn't it? A few days later, this guy managed to connect with me, and a few days later I get called to the principal's office, and here in my mind thinking, here I go, I'm in trouble again. Now remember, I was my brother's keeper. My brother was 3 years, and I didn't mention this to you, but my brother was 3 years younger than me, so I was the older brother, and there's 2 of us now, and there's only us, and I guess I was empathetic towards my brother in a way. But what Mr. Steve Beckham did was I get called into the principal's office thinking that I might be in trouble again, but the principal says to me something that changed my life forever. And actually in my office I've got a picture of my school days with Mr. Beckham, and I had the pleasure of meeting him 25 years later and saying thank you. What the principal actually delivered to me is that the news that I was being moved into Mr. Beckham's class. And I remember I spent 8 months with Mr. Beckham in his class before I moved on to another school. And he taught me not to just be empathetic, and he was teaching me indirectly. Because what was beautiful after 25 years and after going back to Salesian College and saying thank you, and I guess proudly showcasing to him what I was able to achieve throughout my life. I became an educator. I've had the blessing of traveling around the world and teaching hundreds and thousands of people, and I wish to be able to keep it. But this man that's standing in front of you that is able to communicate, and I hope I'm able to speak to you clearly, you know, one day was a migrant that wasn't able to. And if I had continued in this teacher's class, I probably wouldn't be here today. And if it wasn't for Mr. Beckham, I probably wouldn't be here today. My message for us today is to implore and explore how to be more empathetic towards others and towards ourselves. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy it.